I'm going to say a few words, and then we're going to ask our two county supervisors and the new superintendent of the GGNRA to give some opening remarks. We will then have a presentation on a draft of an MOU that's been negotiated between the county and the National Park Service, and we will then hear from members of my ad hoc group who've been working with me for the last almost 6 months on what you're going to be hearing about tonight, and then we're going to open this thing up to public comment. But I want to offer just a few words to start us out. And it seems to me that with the exception of Governor Chris Christie's political enemies in New Jersey, I'm not sure anyone has had to endure the kind of traffic gridlock that we see on peak summer days and increasingly on weekends in southern Marin, due in large part to the popularity of some of the things that just make this place really special and great. Places like Mount Thames, Stinson Beach, Muir Beach, and of course, MuirWoods. What we'll be discussing tonight is not a silver bullet to all of southern Marin's traffic headaches, but it is a potential solution to the MuirWoods part of it, and that's a significant part. It's also an opportunity to resolve the long-standing resentment and conflict that has festered between many local residents and the Park Service, leaving the county, who owns the road in front of MuirWoods, kind of caught in the crossfire and challenged to implement any kind of meaningful problem by itself. Things have become more contentious in recent years. I won't recount the whole history. There are certainly plenty of people in this room who have lived it. And I'm not going to assign blame, because there's always plenty of that to go around in a situation like this. But I will say that the acrimony reached a new height last summer after the community reacted very negatively to a Park Service proposal for a new MuirWoods satellite parking lot off Panoramic. And there's still some reaction to that. And then a citizen lawsuit was actually filed against the Park Service over a proposed new bus stop. Now, when the community and the Park Service and the county feel like they have to talk to each other through lawyers, that's pretty bad. And I'm a lawyer. I like lawyers, but it's been pretty rough. So I got involved, and I first got involved by requesting that the Park Service withdraw its proposal for a parking lot on Panoramic, which they did. And I'm pleased to say that they kept their promise to me and later added a specific commitment to no new parking lot on Panoramic in the recent general management plan for the GGNRA. I think the community appreciates that very much, and so do I. Then I convened this ad hoc group to explore whether we could break through the years of adversarial logjam and find some consensus solutions to start getting some things done about the MuirWoods parking and traffic problem. So I asked the National Park Service, the county, and a broad range of stakeholders to join me and to try to have a productive problem-solving dialogue. We brought this group together last October. And you see before you on the dais tonight the members of that ad hoc group. Most of these folks have been in the trenches of this issue for well over a decade, much longer than me. And I will just say that I know there were many others who we would love to have included in the ad hoc group who probably wanted to be part of it. I apologize to anyone who wanted to participate but was unable to. We had to keep the group to a manageable size, and looking at this group, that's a pretty large ad hoc group, so I'm sorry that we did have to draw some limits, but I think what we came up with was a remarkably broad, credible, and diverse group of stakeholders, and to a person, they were able to put aside past conflicts and engage in a truly respectful and productive dialogue that led us to concrete solutions. They also put in a lot of their time. 5 long meetings with the full group, and numerous smaller meetings and negotiations over the course of about 6 months, as I said, including some back and forth right up through last weekend. I am proud to say that the proposal that we'll be presenting you tonight is supported by every participating stakeholder group in our ad hoc process and has now been memorialized in a draft memorandum of understanding that will be considered in the weeks ahead for approval by the National Park Service and the County Board of Supervisors. I want to thank each of the ad hoc group members, and I especially want to thank my staff here tonight and my district director, Jenny Calloway, for doing such a great job on this process. And I want to give a special thanks to our 2 county supervisors. They're here tonight, you'll hear from them in a moment, but they worked very patiently and persistently on this issue. Supervisor Kate Sears, who probably has the most constituents impacted by this problem, was working on that handful of extra improvements she wanted to see in the MOU on behalf of the community she represents right up into the end of this last holiday weekend. She has been tireless in advocating for Southern Marin communities, and I will tell you, we would not be here. We would not have achieved the results we've had if it hadn't been for her commitment and resolve, as well as that of Supervisor Kinsey. So thank you both. Tonight, in addition to being a public meeting with all of you, is the final meeting of this ad hoc group. We agreed at the beginning that if we were successful, if we got to a point of group consensus, we would have our final meeting in public. We would roll out to you the results that we came up with. We wanted to show to the public what we had as soon as we had it, and that's why this did come together on fairly short notice. I'm really pleased to see we were able to get the word out and have such a great response. In a few moments after the presentation from the Park Service and the county on the proposal, we're going to ask the stakeholder members of the ad hoc group to actually speak and to very briefly explain to you who they are, who they represent, why they support the plan of action. I emphasize briefly because the county and the Park Service are now moving into a public phase of this, where starting tonight and continuing with the Board of Supervisors hearing, they'll be hearing from all of you. They've already heard from the ad hoc group over the course of the last 6 months, so we'll want to be as brief as we can and move forward to the open part of the meeting where we'll hear from all of you. Given the years of public debate and the many community meetings that have happened, the occasional litigation on this subject, I know there are a lot of people in this room who would probably love to hear that this is the end, that we have solved it all, and the traffic problems involving MuirWoods are now going to quickly go away. I want to be honest with you. I'm really happy with what we've been able to produce, but this is not the end. It is hopefully the beginning of the end. There's still a public process that needs to happen before even the county or the National Park Service can formally sign the draft MOU that you're going to be hearing about tonight. And at the end of that, obviously a majority of the Board of Supervisors has to vote to approve it. So I want to emphasize that in addition to your opportunity to have input tonight, you'll have the opportunity for input at the Board of Supervisors hearing on this subject. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the details in the MOU change based on the input that will continue to be received from the public or from other public agencies. It's possible there may be complications, such as litigation, that could delay the MOU and cause timeframes to slip. So just about everything we're talking about here tonight is somewhat preliminary, but with all of those caveats, I want to express my personal optimism. Because after years of dysfunction and conflict, I think we have a very good, viable, proposed plan of action to tell you about tonight. It would be a vast improvement over the status quo that could bring meaningful improvements starting in just a few months, and even bigger improvements phased in over the next several years. Each of you, obviously, will have to decide what you think of this. It's a compromise between a lot of different interests, so nobody is probably going to see everything in this that they want. But it's the best deal that I feel like I and my ad hoc group could produce, and I strongly believe it's the best deal, frankly, any of us are going to get. So I urge you to give it your careful consideration, and then you can decide what you think about it. In terms of the logistics tonight for the public comment, my staff is going to have comment cards that they will be circulating. We'd like you to fill out your questions or comments on those cards, and then at the end of the remarks from the dais, I will start going through those, and I will call groups of you up to the microphone. Again, I'll ask you to be concise in stating your comment or question, and we'll try to cover as much ground as we can. Any of these that we don't get to tonight, we will have collected the cards, and I will make sure that they go to the County Board of Supervisors and to the National Park Service as public input for their consideration as they move forward with their decision making. So with that, I want to hand it over to Supervisor Kate Sears.
It's a little blinding with the light. So, Congressman Huffman, I really want to thank you for your your generous remarks tonight, but also for bringing together our stakeholder group. This has not been an easy process. The conversation amongst the stakeholders has been frank, pointed. I'd say that we started out with a lot of different views in the room, and we really have made significant progress. For those of you out there who are lawyers like I am, and I'm sure there's some of you, it's kind of like when you go to mediation and all the parties come out and they're not feeling great, and you know you've really found a good solution. And I think this is a good start, and it's a good start because of all the public input that we have gotten on this issue for a long, long time. For those of us who live in Southern Marin, I think we've been anxious for a long time now to address the traffic problems that all of us face, that impacts all of our lives on our beautiful holiday weekends. Even when the weather is not so good, we get traffic in Southern Marin that really impacts all of us. And that's been a driving force really for, I think, most of us in the stakeholder group. In addition to that, we're all concerned about the environmental impact. We want to make a change, both in the traffic that we see going through Tam Valley and along Shoreline Highway, and we also want to make a change to the abuses that we've seen, the incredible amount of parking that has been along Redwood Creek. Only over 400 cars parking there on our busiest weekends. That's unacceptable as an environmental impact. And this agreement, draft agreement that you're going to learn more about tonight, makes significant strides, cutting that number down dramatically to 110. That's a good thing. As I said to people earlier this morning, I wish that I had a magic wand to wave and make all of the traffic that we confront, all of the environmental impacts that our environment confronts, from the incredible visitation to this beautiful MuirWoods that everybody wants to go to. I wish I had that wand to make it go away and make it fix it right away. We don't have a magic wand, but we have a glide path and we have a plan. And I think it's a very workable plan. What we're really talking about is changing human behavior. And none of that happens quickly. So I'm hopeful that we have, what you'll hear about tonight, is a framework that creates that glide path, that allows human behaviors to change, that creates a change circumstance that can be well enforced, because behavior change needs that little supportive enforcement in a meaningful way to make it happen. We want to see this succeed. We want to see this change happen. And it's because of all the input that all of you in this room have had for a long time, continuing into the present and going forward, as the Congressman indicated. We're coming to you to show you the work that we have done, that this is not the end of the story. And it won't be the end of the story. If we get an approved MOU by the National Park Service, by the Board of Supervisors, we then implement that program. And an important part of this agreement that you'll hear more about is a public reporting aspect and a requirement to this agreement. So there will be reporting to the Board of Supervisors once a year, but perhaps even more importantly for everybody in this room, there will be a community meeting. So the opportunities for community input, for analysis, what's working, what isn't working, what are issues that people are seeing, that's built into this agreement and guaranteed in this agreement to go forward. So see what you think. You'll hear the presentations and we'll have a future conversation. Thank you very much for being here.
Supervisor Kinsey.
Thank you, Jared. Well, thank you all for being here this evening, and with two articulate leaders like Jared and Kate having presented most of the framework, my job is fairly simple tonight. First, I want to thank everyone in the room, because this really is a challenge that requires involvement of many. I want to thank the community organizations and the representatives who participated, and certainly I want to thank the Congressman again and his staff for giving us the leadership and the determination to keep working, and to keep working towards a framework that is even now only a draft. It still, as was mentioned, requires consideration by all of us in the room here, and importantly by the Board of Supervisors. I do want to say that we will be taking this up at the Board of Supervisors hearing on June 16th. And so for those who can attend or want to watch on the internet, June 16th is the date that this item will be agendized for our board's consideration. And I've been assured by the the Congressman that the Park Service will be able to follow through on their end after we take action within the balance of the month. So we're really trying to set something in place so that we can actually see progress happen this summer, and more importantly, make constant improvements over the years ahead that lie in this. The other thing I want to say is that I really strongly believe that the reservation concept, the idea of spreading and accounting for when people come and go from the park is fundamental to managing the visitation at MuirWoods. And so it's an essential element of what we've worked out. We didn't work that out just even amongst those of us who are sitting at the table. I want to thank our Department of Public Works. We have our Director, Raul Rojas, here today with us. Thank you. And importantly, I think Eric Stager deserves a special acknowledgement. He'll be presenting tonight. But these are people that worked through weekends, through evenings, turned things around very quickly in order for us to be here tonight. I also want to thank our elected sheriff, Bob Doyle, and his staff. They, too, engaged very directly with the Park Service law enforcement to be able to come up with meaningful terms in which, under the sheriff's authority, he would be willing to allow for expanded enforcement, not a transfer of enforcement. The sheriff will retain full rights, as he always has. It's his authority, and that will continue. And I want to thank the new superintendent of the GGNRA, Chris Leonards. She'll be speaking, but what a job to walk into, huh? So we're counting on you, Chris, and I know that, as all of us know, that these have been tough years. Trust has been low, so the scrutiny that this document will receive, and more importantly, the framework as it plays out, and as we all get to watch it and participate with it, is going to be especially important. So thanks for being here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Steve. So last but certainly not least, we have a new superintendent of the GGNRA, and no matter what her predecessors may have told her about what she would encounter in a public meeting like this, I told her I think she's going to get a really warm Southern Ring reception, because all of us are ready for her to preside over a wonderful, new, good neighbor era between Southern Marin and our great neighbor Park Service. So please welcome Chris Leonard.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I've been here 4 weeks on the job, and 1 week is in Washington, D.C., so that was kind of a waste. No, I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. And let me also introduce Aaron Roth. He's the Deputy Superintendent, and he has been in this process for many years, and really is the kind of heart and soul. And my right-hand person here tonight, he's going to be presenting along with the folks from Marin County. And so just wanted to make sure that you recognize him as the guy who has most of the answers. And we're excited about the vision that this draft MOU really can provide for solving what has been a really complex and thorny set of issues. And as a neighbor to the folks here, MuirWoods National Monument, Golden Gate National Recreation Area, I just want you to know we really value this relationship. We want it to be a positive relationship. We want it to be a listening relationship and a learning relationship. And that's part of the tenor of what tonight is all about. MuirWoods was created in 1908. It is a national treasure. It is a place that some people say for their lifetimes, the opportunity to come and see redwoods, to come and see this place that is so special and is such a heart of the conservation story of the United States. And we want to make sure that experience fits in well with the communities that surround this park, that we can manage public safety, that we can manage access to the park, and we can make sure we do it in a way that makes sense and brings an opportunity not just for visitors, but to be good neighbors and to understand the situations that are both out there, to protect natural resources and to make those experiences and traffic congestion as low as possible in Buenos Aires. So I'm not going to say a lot more. We're going to go to the presentations. Jared, thank you very much for everything you've done, and for the county supervisors for all the work we've done together. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Chris. We're going to ask Aaron Roth of the Park Service and Eric Steger of the County Public Works to take over the next part of the agenda and present the MOU to us.
It works. There you go. Very good. Thank you, Congressman Huffman, and welcome again, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Eric Steger. I'm with the Marion County Department of Public Works. And tonight, we're going to be making a presentation here jointly with the Park Service. I'm going to scoot out the way to one of the slides. Okay. So I want to start off going over the goals. These are actually been talked about and worked on for many years. During the course of the years, we're working on one of the memorialized goals. So they're to protect, preserve, and enhance the health of every creek, watershed, including the disseminates, to reduce traffic congestion at MuirWoods on MuirWoods Road and the local communities adjacent to the new roads, to improve traffic and pedestrian safety and reduce environmental impacts and the rise in parking along MuirWoods Road, and to increase local transit and better managed buses, both commercial buses and public transit. Now, this takes a bit of cooperation and integration of other activities, and I think for the next slide.
Thanks, Eric. I think those goals reflect well the goals that the National Park Service has had on this issue for a number of years in terms of being able to work in a coordinated way to both manage visitation, manage impacts, and also improve and protect resources. And that really, when we proposed the reservation system a couple of years ago, that was really at the core of what we were looking to do. Through the listening that we've done, we've been able to realize that roadside parking is a key piece of that puzzle for the community. And so what we're going to be talking about today is really how the reservation system with visitation management combined with more intentional parking along MuirWoods Road with resource protection, how it's going to work in an integrated way to help us make progress on this issue. So the actions that we're proposing, Eric will talk a little bit more about the roadside parking in particular, and I'll talk a little bit more about how the visitation management, how those two will work together to make progress.
So this is where we start to get into the meat of the actual speak out. This is where we get into the meat of the actual MOU. We worked with input from public meetings from the community representatives and other stakeholders, such as California Department of Parks and Recs and the Marion County Sheriff's Office. And our goal was to eventually eliminate parking south of the concrete bridge, and I'm going to show that on the map here in a moment, over the 7 years of the MOU. This will be the road shoulder parking along the public right-of-way in MuirWoods Road. We would do this through a phased program, and we'll show you additional information on that as well. Part of that work would be to install physical barriers, additional parking restrictions, and then we would initially reduce sort of a 400 or haphazard parking vehicles that are parked there haphazardly at the time of the year down to about 110 spaces.
Speak in the microphone louder. Hold it real close.
Okay, sorry. And of course, along with the parking restrictions, we need to do enforcement along the road. And so part of the MOU grants shared authority to issue tickets along the road and have additional dedicated parking enforcement officers. And so to accomplish one of the goals that we laid out in the beginning, by reducing the parking, the shoulder parking, we'll have fewer vehicles that are parked next to the creek. And then we also plan to install interim stormwater best management practices in those areas as well, such as straw bottles to reduce potential sediment into the creek. So how are we going to reduce the parking? Well, we're going to do it in a phased program. So in the first couple of years, as laid out in the MOU, that's the time period where the reservation system is being developed by the National Park Service. So we're moving from about 400 vehicles that could be haphazardly parked along MuirWoods Road down to 80 in south of the bridge and about 30 north of the bridge. Once the reservation system is in place, there's a cap of 80 vehicles parked along MuirWoods Road, and then within, or between years 4.5 and year 7, that cap drops to 40, and eventually by year 7, it goes to 0.
I just want to mention that these maps are in your handout. So there's the PowerPoint handout, which looks like those are in black and white, but there was a summary handout on the front that has, that you picked up on the way, and that's color. And on page 3, there is a map there that's helpful to reference this next piece. 4. Oh, is it page 4? Sorry, last page, thank you.
So I'm going to start with the map here. It's a little hard to see, but again, you have the information in hand here. This is basically a Google map of the MuirWoods area. Up here at the top, towards the north, is Panoramic Highway, and this yellow or orange line runs down through here with the blue. All the way down the bottom here is MuirWoods Road. This bottom section being connected to State Route Highway. This is the park entrance right over here, and this is where the Park Service has the parking lots. And this orange line, blue, depicts what we call the parking enforcement corridor. And that's where we have the shared parking enforcement with the Park Service and the sheriff. The blue line that runs through here, it starts by this actually by a little overflow parking lot from the Park Service, Congressman Avenue, and runs down to about Kent Canyon, is the parking management corridor. This is where we're going to be really enforcing having additional parking restrictions, physical barriers, and where the permit parking will take place through the reservation system from the Park Service. So again, for years 1 through 2, the first few months we'll have new additional parking restrictions, and of course there will be additional authority granted to the Park Service to enforce parking in that area. Through years 2, the Park Service is developing and implementing the parking reservation system. During this time period, as I already mentioned, the physical barriers will be installed, and initially our goal is to bring parking down fairly quickly to 80 vehicles in this area, and about 30 vehicles in this area, about a total of 110 in this area. We've already actually gone out there and walked and looked at putting additional parking restriction signs for enforcement in these other areas as well. And then we'll be looking at installing the interim stormwater measures as well. Once the years 3 4.5, the reservation system is now in place and operating. Again, the map's pretty much the same. At this point, there will be a cap of 80 vehicles that will be able to be parked along here from the bridge to about Kent Canyon. 30 vehicles remaining up in this area. And this zone will require parking passes in order for vehicles to park there. And that will be issued through the Park Service's reservation system. Also want to mention that we're going to continue to have community meetings twice a year as part of the MOU. One of the meetings will be held at, per year, be held at the Board of Supervisors, and the other meeting will be held down here in Southern Maine, one of the communities. Continuing on, at years 4.5 to 7 to the end of the MOU, where the reservation system really should be kicking in. This is also combined with changeable message signs, alerting people about parking restrictions, and other public messaging to discourage people from taking individual vehicles out there and encouraging them to use the shuttle or other means of public transportation to get out there. During this time period, the parking cap drops to 40 below the bridge, keeping 30 up here north of the bridge. And then, of course, by the end of this time period, parking is completely eliminated south of the bridge in this area. Now, there's one thing in the MOU I want to mention, and that is during this time period, there is an exception that the Park Service pursues, looking at making improvements to the existing parking lots out there, potentially increasing parking or installing some stormwater protection measures then the parking counts are allowed for that. The 80 vehicles during that time while there's restrictions in parking in the National Park Service parking lots.
Thanks, Eric. And I think it's been broad agreement between the county and MPS for some time that the roadside parking doesn't work. It's not something that we wanted to sustain under any scenario. It really was always been a question of how. How are we going to get off the road and into more sustainable parking solutions that are safe for visitors, better for the environment, and reduce traffic? And so this has really put some of the pieces together. As Chris said earlier, you know, MuirWoods is truly an amazing place, and it's a national treasure, and it's a place people have traveled a long distance to arrive at. And by the time they arrive, they are really dedicated to making it there. And we have experimented in the past of trying to deter this dedication through signs, or bollards, or blocking things off, or extra enforcement, or postings on our website. And all those measures, they go a part of the way, but they don't get all the way there. And we experience this surge in demand certain parts of the day that end up with these vehicles on the road. So the difference now is we really understand the how, the sequence of events, the things that can come together to eventually lead us to where we can commit to be completely off the road south of the bridge in an amount of time through a phased approach. So we're making that commitment because we now have the tools to get there. And I want to talk a little bit about the reservation system and visitation management and how it matches up with these parking limits that Eric has described. One of the big improvements out of the reservation system, or the important nexus to our goals, is to restore some of the contemplative experience, some of the inspiration that the woods can offer by really reducing and managing congestion inside and outside the woods. Right now, we have a situation where our MuirWoods experience is substantially compromised, and we think that by better managing visitation through reservations, we can restore a contemplative, inspirational quality. Not only the woods always offer that, but now as you arrive in the total experience in the woods. So it's about improving the quality of the experience, providing approximately the same level of access throughout the year, but not all at the same time, so that the visitor arrival is not overwhelmed by people and compromising that experience. So that's really the key of what the reservation system offers. And one of the things we heard really clearly from the community is concern that by reducing peak visitation, by putting in limits at the very busy times, that folks would come other times, and then every day of the year would feel crowded. So that's why in this proposal, we're very clear about commitments to different experiences and different visitation levels at different times of the year. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as well. Part of this maintains our current commitment to the MuirWoods Shuttle with our partner, Marin Transit. This has been a proven way to get cars off the road and into buses and enable people to be inspired and have that quality experience while reducing traffic. So we're maintaining that commitment, and we're also committed to increasing transit where feasible. We are also realize that buses are not all equal in their impact, and we have to make sure we're managing all types of different buses coming to the woods, including our own, and that means tour buses and commercial buses. And we want to make sure that they do not exceed the vehicle requirements, and we're going to work to do that. And we're also going to be putting a reservation system in place for buses to make sure that they are spaced out through time. Infrastructure and watershed health, I want to speak to that as well. That we also know that when we talk about resource protection, health of the watershed, infrastructure plays a big role in that. And that the infrastructure we have throughout this watershed is dated and in definite need of upgrade. Most of the National Park Service facilities were installed in the 50s, especially out parking lots. And the MuirWoods Road, the alignment around that is as old as the woods has been a monument. So we definitely need to pursue substantial renovations of that infrastructure so that watershed health can be improved. But in the meantime, we have some interim measures that will help us get there. Okay, this chart admittedly is a little bit complicated at first glance, but it's in your packet in a couple different areas, and it's critical to this conversation about where we're going with this. What we have here is in January through December, this is a year, and this is 365 days at MuirWoods National Monument. And on the left is our visitors per day, so this is the number of visitors we experience per day. The black dotted line in the background, that is our 2017 projected visitation with no action. If we did not do anything, that's where our visitation would be. That's simply taking last year's number, bumping it up a little bit, 1 or 2%, and that's where we would be. We are experiencing days, it's worth noting, on peak weekends that everyone feels is in the 5,000 to 6,000 person days. And that is the biggest problem we're tackling right away with the reservation system, is to address those days where everything feels overwhelmed from the MuirWoods entrance all the way through the woods itself. A couple other features of this graph. This blue line, so if that's if we did nothing, this blue line is what the maximum visitation will be with the reservation system. So with the reservation system, we are controlling and managing all motorized access to the woods. This includes the commercial tour buses, this includes our own shuttle, and includes all private vehicle trips into the woods. That accounts for the vast majority, I don't know the exact stat, but it's 95% plus. Someone from my team will help me on that later. But it's the vast majority of visitors arrive through motorized transit. The only exceptions are bicyclists or pedestrians, locals that might hike in from Mountain or a bunch of other places. So we know that if we carefully control and cap motorized vehicle trips, then we can in effect manage visitation within capacity of the monument and within capacity of the infrastructure to support it, including the parking lots and the roadside parking. And we also know that using this tool of a reservation system, we can spread visitation throughout the day. So not only can we manage it on a daily basis, we can actually say and estimate by giving people target arrival times, actual hourly targets for the number of people that want to arrive. Because right now, everyone is coming in the middle of the day. So what we'll be doing is, we will still have some days that are busy, and I'll talk more about that, 4,000 person days. But they're going to be within capacity because we'll be managing that 5 hour and spreading that throughout the day so that we're not exceeding metrics inside the woods and outside the woods for the capacity of both. A couple other features on this is the fact that you see this heartbeat pattern. The uptick in the heartbeat is the weekends, and the low points are the weekdays. So weekdays will not be the same visitation as weekends. Predictably, under the system, we will constrain visitation to these lower points during the weekdays. The other thing is there's seasonality here. I'll talk to you more about that in the next slide. With the seasonality factor, this is the different experiences at different times. So it's important to note that through our studies, we have estimated that and we've talked to this about previous meetings, somewhere between 3,500 and 4,500 is roughly the maximum of where we want to be. But we don't want to be there all the time because we want different experiences and more contemplative experiences at different times. And it's also, there's other considerations, wildlife, etc., and also community considerations. And also the visitor demand is not the same. There would be no point for us to go out and sort of market and entice visitation when the natural demand is not there. So in this scenario, we have, yes, 40% of the time that peak season, April through October, we will have a maximum of just under 4,500, weekdays just less. And then we'll have the shoulder season that's in between. But importantly, a full 40% of the time, we will not be exceeding 2,800 visitors at MuirWoods National Monument. You would know this as an extremely quiet day for MuirWoods at this level, especially when we're managing every hour, so that no single hour is higher than others. So through this, we're able to not substantially increase annual visitation to MuirWoods, provide different experiences at different times, and meet some of our traffic and congestion goals. So just to wrap up as part of the presentation, so what are the results of the reservation system? In summary, the traffic, what does it do? Peak times, MuirWoods related traffic, so the peak season, I should say, that April through November, because we're reducing visitation in the peak season, which is when it's most problematic, we will be reducing MuirWoods associated vehicle trips by 20 to 30% with this system. Importantly, during peak hours of that peak season, where it's really bad, we'll be cutting MuirWoods associated vehicle trips in half. We'll have half the number of private vehicle trips coming through Tam Junction during those peak times. In terms of the experience, simply put, it's not an overwhelming number of people outside or inside the park. We are constantly dealing with safety issues, frustration, and conflict amongst our visitors. Just go on Yelp for MuirWoods National Monument, and it is the #1 issue of people visiting MuirWoods is the experience getting there is frustrating. It's the opposite of inspiring. And so we believe this has a huge benefit for that. More, quieter, and contemplative visits. And lastly, the environment. This is just a start of it. It's not the whole picture. There are many other initiatives underway to improve habitat in the Redwood Creek watershed, and many by our partners that are sitting in this room. But this does reduce air pollutants because we don't have people circling around looking for parking. We know when they're coming, we have parking available for them. And it's less vehicle trips overall because there's more transit. And we know that there is improved creek-side situation by removing the parking off that, which reduces the risk of sediment going into the creek and possibly reducing habitat in that situation. So those are some of the benefits there. So with that, I'd like to wrap up and turn the mic back over to Congressman Huffman.
All right, thanks everybody. We're going to keep moving, and one of the first questions I actually had on this card from the general public was, who are these stakeholders that were part of your ad hoc group? We have them right here, and we're going to let them introduce themselves. And I have given them the impossible challenge of telling you who they are, who they represent, and why they support this path forward in like a couple of sentences. So we're going to see how well they do. Let's start with Mill Valley Councilwoman Stephanie Moulton-Peters, and I'll just ask you folks to pass the mic as you go.
Thank you, Jared. I'm Councilwoman Stephanie Moulton-Peters, and the residents of the city of Mill Valley share many of the same concerns about safety, traffic, congestion, parking, and the environment. I was happy to be part of a process that I thought brought all the players at this table to a consensus and a compromise position. We all moved towards the middle in order to get started with a plan that will make improvements right away. So that's why I support the MOU.
My name is Nathan Hills. I'm with the Muir Beach Community Services District, which is the tiny little government for the neighboring community of Muir Beach. And basically what I think is notable here is the process was changed. Instead of like a proposal being made and then everybody along this table taking pot shots at it, we were encouraged to sit down at the table together and actually work something out. And I think when we bogged down, the Congressman's office was able to nudge us to the limits of our comfort zone. And so I think that what you've got here is a starting point for the public review process is actually very far through it and something where I think it's gotten a great possibility of success. So anyway, I'm encouraged by the process.
Thanks. I'm Matt Leffert. I'm with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, and I'm on the working group of the Tamalpais Lands Collaborative, and that's a partnership among California State Parks, the National Park Service, Marin Municipal Water District, and Marin County Parks with the community-supported nonprofit Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. And we are very appreciative to Congressman Huffman for convening this group, and also very appreciative to this group of stakeholders as Leighton said, to getting us to this starting point. We believe that this is a great path forward and really adheres to the partnership principles that we as a collaborative believe in.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Barrett, and I represent. Hello, my name is Marilyn Barrett, and I represent Homestead Valley, in particular the Homestead Valley Land Trust. And my father had the vision to create this swath of land in the hillsides around Homestead Valley to preserve them for perpetuity. And so I'm proud to be part of this process. And we have come a long way, like Jared Huffman said, from a proposed parking lot on Panoramic, which nobody wanted, to a plan that's workable. But I would encourage each and every one of you to stay involved. I mean, this is a start of a process. It's going to be ongoing for a long time. And I would like you to get all of your neighbors involved. We really need feedback and involvement of the community to keep everything running on the right path. And so I would encourage each and every one of you.
Hi everybody, I'm Stephen Barcha, and I'm a board member of the Tamalpais Community Services District. I live just a few blocks from Tam Junction, and you know, every weekend the entire Bay Area seems to empty out and come through our little junction, and they all want to get wherever they're going in West Marin right about noon. So I'm really looking for the reservation system to kind of smooth out that process, and you know, it's one aspect, MuirWoods. Maybe we'll get some reservation systems at the beaches next, and maybe later we'll just have a baller and reserve everything just for residents. Just kidding. But you know, what I wanted to do also is really thank Representative Huffman for his leadership, pulling us all together, because I've been through some Rancers meetings, and there was really no agreement possible, it seemed. And you know, the worst of all solutions right now is to just sit back and do nothing and just let everybody figure out when to come to MuirWoods and park wherever they can. And that's the current situation. So I'm really all in favor of trying something and then continuing the public engagement and modulating the reservation system. The cool thing about a reservation system, it can be tweaked. All the little variables can be tweaked. So if we notice some weird things going on in Tam Junction, which we have in a few months. If we continue to notice some weird things, we can actually tweak the reservation system and see if it can make a difference. So, thank you, Representative Huffman.
Why don't we go down to Nancy? Nancy, you want to take that microphone right there? Then we can keep this one on this side.
Good evening.
Turn it off.
It's on? Okay. Can you hear me? Close to your mouth. Okay. I'm Nancy Whelan. I'm the general manager at Marin Transit. We provide the local transit service here in Marin County, and we are partners with National Park Service in providing the shuttle, the MuirWoods shuttle, which we have done very successfully for the last several years. We carry up to 25% of peak visitors on peak visitation days. So we think we can continue that and be a part of the solution here. We're looking forward to the reservation system because it will help us smooth things out, as you said earlier. So we're going to make our best effort to make transit part of the solution here. So.
Hi everybody, I'm Bob Wright with Mount Tam Task Force, and I'm also the liaison to MWCPA, which is the community right above MuirWoods. I do also want to thank Congressman Huffman for his efforts to try to resolve this situation and get to some kind of agreement. Though not perfect, it certainly gets us a long way. Our community, you know, we're in complete agreement on the principles, and I'm delighted we actually got this far. I think it strikes a balance between stewardship and access. However, the devil is in the details, and that's where the MOU is going to come in. Particularly, my community is concerned about taking 7 years to finally get all the cars off of Frank Valley Road. I believe that could be alleviated by immediate enforcement of the parking, which doesn't require an MOU. And also, like to see more details about greater transparency, because that's really what got us in this situation in the first place. So, but like I said, I'm going to iterate, we've come a long, long way, and I think we've got to an agreement that we can all live with.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Shannon. I'm chairman of the Mountain Task Force, which is an umbrella group of ecology groups and communities that's focused on the stewardship, the long-term stewardship of the Mountain Town and MuirWoods area. We are so appreciative of Congressman Huffman's leadership, breaking the gridlock, getting us together so we can sit down and talk things through. We completely agree with what you said, Congressman, in your opening remarks about this being a viable direction. And with what Superintendent Sears said, and we certainly have appreciated her engagement in this activity. Just what the world needs, another lawyer, to help keep us moving along. We really looking forward to hear what everyone has to say and contribute tonight. And we appreciate the Board of Supervisors' open commitment to listening. What we have is a direction. What we have is a framework. What we don't have is the details and the specifics. And we all recognize there are gaps as this contract moves to completion. And we hope that the questions that are raised tonight will be respected, and we'll have a chance to complete a really ethical, fair, and transparent process together.
Thank you very much. At the outset, I apologize for being another lawyer. I'm Chris Carr. I'm the chair of Morrison and Forster's Environment Energy Practice Group, and I'm the counsel for Mountain Task Force. And I just want to start off by thanking and congratulating Congressman Huffman for taking this on. There's really not much in it for you. Took on a hornet's nest at great risk, and you've really pointed us in the right direction. The MOU, I think, puts us on a sensible pathway to addressing these issues for the long term. We're looking forward to the vetting and public process with the Board of Supervisors in the next couple of weeks to address some of these devils that are in the details, as Bob mentioned, from the lawyer perspective. And I apologize, one of them is, of course, going to be sort of having realistic compliance mechanisms, sort of looking for that. But really, I think with what Congressman Huffman with the other elected Supervisor Sears and Supervisor Kinsey, as well as the Park Service folks, Chris Leonards and Aaron Roth, sort of coming together. This really, to me, represents a historic breakthrough. And I just want to thank you for allowing a lawyer to participate in these processes. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Kaufman, and I guess the first time I came into MuirWoods was over 50 years ago for a wedding in Cathedral Cove. There was nobody there. It was empty. You couldn't even see the sky. It was so covered with redwood trees. And we've watched it change over the years. So I want to thank the Congressman also, because in the direction things are going, it's been frightening. And with this kind of control, it may start to recover from some of the impact that it's seen over the last several years. And I want to thank Congressman and his staff and all those who worked on it. This is the first time I've been at this table, so I don't have a lot to say, but thank you.
Good evening, I'm Nona Dennis. I'm on the board of Marine Conservation League, and I chair the Parks and Open Space Committee for the League. MCL has about an 80-year investment in the public lands of Marin County, and we've watched MuirWoods evolve over the years. I've been here as long, and I also can remember when MuirWoods was quiet. We've also watched the National Park Service really do a magnificent job of managing to preserve the resources within the monument itself, and really also manage the visitor experience in spite of the huge crowds that come in. They have managed to work in many ways to protect the ecosystem, but have been less spectacular in the results outside the monument, and that's where the concern is now. With all the work that's been done to protect the whole Redwood Creek watershed from the top of Mount Tam down to the lagoon, we see this one stretch of parking, which is the raw piece in the whole restoration effort. So we're looking forward to a solution which is going to remove parking, begin to protect the creek from pollutants. And this has been only possible, I think, because Congressman Huffman has brought us all together. And some others have done some very heavy lifting. Thank you.
I'm Gordon Bennett with Save Our Seashore, formerly with the Sierra Club. I'm the guy that shot down the 1,000-car garage at Manzanita, completely unnecessary. What was needed is what's on the table now, which is a reservation system, which I actually proposed for the Sierra Club 11 years ago. Now it's finally coming to pass, and I think it's great. My biggest concern is that this could have happened or process could have begun a year ago. There's been a lot of misunderstanding. I hope that's cleared up now. And my biggest concern now is that if we quibble over the last 1 or 2%, there's a chance it's going to get delayed further. So my biggest concern is we need to stay on schedule, because these things can slip, and it can slip again. And we need to get those cars off the road immediately. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. That's my ad hoc group. I hope you appreciate their work as much as I do. And we're going to now turn to you, the members of the public who have joined us tonight. I got a lot of cards here, folks. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that. We're going to get as far as we can. Part of that depends on your ability to stay concise and state your question, and then we'll see which, if any, of the folks up here on the dais want to respond to it. We may just take it as public comment under consideration, or we may have a response. We'll see how it goes on a case-by-case basis. But I'd like to call up the first several folks who filled out these cards. Bob Freitas, Craig Severance, Jack Crystal, and Dr. Edward Hyman. If you folks could come up, and then as we move through your questions, I'll call some others to sort of be on deck and at the ready. Bob, are you still with us? Great. No pressure, don't walk too fast. All right, can you use this mic, is this okay?
Sure.
All right, so there's your question.
So my questions were, I guess we're talking about. Okay, we're really close now. How's that? So, no. Here, I think I turned it on. Better? Okay. So we're talking about the amount of traffic that's directly going to MuirWoods. And I really think that the real gorilla here is I'd like to know, I guess, what percentage of improvement we would see at Tam Junction with the full implementation of this plan, because I'm figuring it's only 10% traffic reduction.
Well, let's ask some of the folks that have been looking at this. We have mics, by the way, on both tables that will just sort of slide down to whoever wants to respond. Stephanie, did you want to speak to this too?
Hello? So in terms of how MuirWoods traffic relates to Tam Junction, depending on the time of year, MuirWoods associated traffic from a study we've done previously ranges from 7 to 15%. It's just a fraction of the traffic that's coming through Tam Junction. So if we are talking about decreasing at peak times MuirWoods related traffic like in half, like I talked before, then rough math, and again I want to stress the roughness of it, you can see some improvement at Tam Junction, something in the order of 3 to 6, 7% during those time frames. Now, that being said, it sounds like a small amount, but folks have pointed out that are in this business of traffic that even a small amount can make a big difference in how it feels on the ground, and that some of our intersections can perform a lot better with even an incremental improvement like that. But Tam Junction is a very complicated traffic problem, to say the least, And MuirWoods is just part of it.
Great, so I would just add, many of you may know that the City of Mill Valley has been looking very carefully at traffic. Our entryway on the south is Shoreline Highway, and then to the north is East Blythedale. And we do know that a reduction of 10% in traffic can really make a difference in how those stoplights function. So it isn't a magic bullet, but it is sure a big step ahead to make these kinds of reductions over time in the traffic to MuirWoods.
All right, Jack, and if Craig Severance and Dr. Edward Hyman could come on up and be ready.
Thank you. This is Jack Bristol. I have to applaud, and all of us do that, to have reached a compromise where everyone is unhappy, and yet there is a plan. But I think that in all of our hearts we realize that the plan is flawed. And I believe that the flawedness comes from the fact that locally, everyone would like to eliminate the congestion, the traffic, the burden. And yet, the national park has a totally different goal and purpose and what will happen in the future. And why not take care of the problem, which will continue, will get bigger, by building a large parking garage right off of 101, right where Rodeo has a big, big hole there, and charge fees for the parking, build some gondolas, and simply bring the people in a similar plan to their destination and totally alleviate the traffic and the circulation and the parking situation, which will continue to burden us all. Could you please, as a newcomer and as an old-comer, Mr. Roth, describe why not do that? The federal government can fund it. You can do a solar installation that will feed the energy, and it can be a model for 80-some thousand acres in Oregon County.
All right, thanks, Jack. Let's ask the Park Service. Okay.
I think as part of our comprehensive transportation management planning process that we participated in over a number of years, we turned over many different rocks in Marin County for where could we stage cars in a meaningful way for transportation access to the woods. It's a good idea. It makes sense. It's logical in a lot of ways. If we can get people out of their cars and arrive to the woods via transit, you have no disagreement. The issue is the practicality of it. When you actually start to investigate where would this large parking staging area be in Marin County or in San Francisco, a place for it does not exist in our opinion, especially during the week when the vast majority of the community is engaged in commuting to San Francisco from those same areas. So we think a plan like this one that balances modes of arrival across various different means, some through private vehicles, some through transit, intersected at Manzanita, which on the weekends is a site that exists with capacity, Manzanita, Pohono, whatever you want to call it, 101 and 1 Junction. That site functions well as an intersect facility. And then the third piece is point of origin transportation options, which are mostly fulfilled by our commercial and tour bus industry that will pick up people from their hotels in San Francisco and transport them all the way to the woods. But given where everyone is coming from, north, south, far, close, and different types of patterns, we really need that mix of arrival abilities in the right amount of each to provide access and inspiration to the woods for all those different types of people.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Anyone from the county want to speak to this? I know that there's at least one stakeholder here that fought against this very proposal. I don't want to turn this into too much of a debate about it, but if there's anyone from the county that has different thoughts, or... All right, seeing none, let's keep moving. All right, so, Doctor, and if we could have Richard Owens come forward for the next question.
Is it on? Yes. I saw you were jumping on that. I have to, first of all, join with my former neighbor, Gordon, in opposing this structure. But I do think Aaron, in talking about intercepts, might consider even intercepts south, north, and so forth, and going in these various directions, maybe weekend usage of Caltrans parking lots in different directions, and see if we could, again, further eliminate vehicles coming in. I don't think NPS can eliminate the difficulty in Town Junction, but I hope it can significantly contribute in a very meaningful way to whatever we can do to improve it. I have some concerns in that context about the buses, and I've heard discussion more generally limited. But again, I want to emphasize that I think particularly in this question of the number of buses, that's very important also for this flow through of traffic. Because I'm a forensic examiner, I go out on a regular basis, and I find that my commute is 50% longer than it was prior to the lights going in. I think that's a broader issue, but with the increases in traffic through that area, it's really pretty profound. We've got to do something about that problem in general. But one of the things that we can do initially about it is the number of individual cars. So I think the sooner that we implement the parking reservation system, move forward on that, and hopefully move forward much more rapidly on what's going to happen on Frank Valley Road, near Woods Road, in terms of the scheduling of getting cars off of that road, because I think it's extremely important environmentally. And I also want to salute the Congressman and each of you for your contribution in making this general structure happen. And I hope we can bring the same deal of wisdom that's been expressed in that moving forward.
Thank you, Doug. I want to salute you back, and sorry if I am like the Academy Awards music occasionally. I'm going to try to keep us moving. Anyone want to respond to any of that? We appreciate the feedback. I want to, if I can, kind of keep it at the technical level. If folks in the ad hoc group feel compelled to add in, let's do it. But every time we do back and forth, we limit the ability to hear from one more person. So let's. Does anyone want to respond? Certainly welcome to, Gordon.
Okay, just really quickly. This program is not going to result in a flood of new buses on the road. That was the problem with the Manzanita parking lot. It was going to result in a flood of new shuttles on the road to take those people there. This reservation program will allow the shuttles to operate more efficiently, so they'll be fuller. So there's not going to be a bunch of new shuttles. Each shuttle is going to be fuller. So there's not going to be a bunch of new bus traffic on the road.
All right, thank you. Richard Owens, I called before. I don't think he's with us anymore. How about Gina Fagan and Doug Karpa and Nancy Gribbler? We ask you folks to come forward. I see Doug, so you're first if you get here. You gonna wait? Okay.
Hi, I'm Doug Karpa. I just wanted to actually thank you all for undertaking this magnificent work. It's great to see this process go forward. I think two questions actually. One, obviously you're hearing a lot about parking and the issues about where the cars going to go in terms of the shuttles. I'm wondering if there are, it sounds like there are traffic studies and parking feasibility studies. Are those public or could be made public, just by way of information? And the other kind of, I think, meatier question is, my understanding is this puts out a 7-year timeline for reducing the parking, which, again, I'm just delighted with the idea of parking going away. What can be done? What can we do? What can you all do to shorten that timeline, to get that done more quickly? Because, you know, as you all know, or many of you know, I'm very concerned about the state of Redwood Creek and the species that live there. There's some significant issues. There is a time frame. dealing with those populations? Is there, what's the constraint here, and how can we speed that up?
Supervisor Kinsey. Thanks, Doug.
Doug, I want to say, first of all, that we're at 400 cars parking there today. By next summer, there should only be 110 spaces. 7 years is to eliminate all parking south of the bridge. So, and that is dependent upon a reservation system. So whether or not we can pick up the pace, there are factors that all of us can work on. I think support for the Park Services, modifications of their own parking, and increasing their capacity to deal with these issues on their own property, getting more people to use bus transit to come to the woods. These are things that could actually result in expediting the elimination of all parking along the creek. And I do think that the process that allows for us to meet as a community a couple times a year to talk about it will give us a chance to let the public know where we are and if we can do better in the middle of the process. It is an adaptive management program.
Anyone else? What we can do to move faster? I know that we talked about this a lot at the ad hoc group. The pacing items really are the reservation system. Just takes some time to design and roll out. There are contracts that have to be let and work product that has to be developed. And then, as Supervisor Kinsey alluded to, there are definitely going to be some proposals for reconfiguration of existing Park Service facilities within MuirWoods that are very important to all of this working together. And if that can all come off seamlessly, I suspect everyone agrees we could beat 7 years. I don't know by how much, but it's also possible that we could run into unforeseen complications, and it may not go as we hope. But I think the sense of urgency is shared by everyone. So, Nancy, are you ready? Yeah, I'm going to call some more people while we're waiting. Jeremy Gribbler, Laura Sheraton, and Native Americans, it says, Costa Miwok Great Rancheria. So come on up, please.
Good evening, Congressman, supervisors, and all you ad hocers. It's really great to see such a great and diverse group, and it's been a long couple of years with, I think that we've made some progress, but honestly, I don't think that we're doing enough. And what I want to speak to is an incredibly dangerous situation of the traffic that exists right now coming in to Mill Valley and on Mount Tamalpais. And I have to tell you, a 7 to 10% decrease is not going to do it. My husband and I tend to enjoy a brunch at the Gypsy Cafe fairly often on a Saturday or a Sunday. And if anyone has sat there and looked at the traffic coming off the freeway, and most horrifically, we have watched fire trucks, ambulances, police, and sheriff not being able to get through that traffic. This is incredibly dangerous, and this really needs to be looked at. 7 to 10% is nothing. I also want to talk about the fact that we never see any kind of police or sheriff there at Tam Junction looking at what's going on. We've lived on Mount Tamalpais for over 30 years, and there's a frightening situation at Four Corners, and there's never any police or safety there on the weekend helping to see what's going on. And I love the sheriff, and they're always there to help us out, but there needs to be some sort of presence. So I'd just like to say that we're not going far enough in terms of health and safety.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the County Park Service want to speak to the dedicated law enforcement presence that is going to be part of this? It's both.
Most of these
shared
situations
enforcement
are outside of the scope of what we are talking about helping with, but we can refer specifically that along MuirWoods Road, as part of the program, we will be granted authority to supplement the sheriff's authority to enforce. As at present, our National Park Service Rangers cannot do enforcement along MuirWoods Road. and so therefore we are limited to managing our parking lots and the monument itself. So as part of this, we will be granted the authority to be a vehicle or bicycle, go all along the road, and enforce the parking restrictions we're talking about putting in place. And we plan on using some of the proceeds from the parking fees to invest in additional dedicated law enforcement officers for that purpose.
And with all due respect, I'm speaking about before the park.
Yes.
Okay, that's exactly that. Appreciate the concern. Any other response?
Yes, you know, you make an excellent point that solving the problem at MuirWoods doesn't solve the problem at TM Junction. The solution at TM Junction is going to be expensive. It's going to require a major investment in transportation improvements. And although we haven't identified any source of money, with a group like this here, we have the chair, Stephanie Moulton-Peters, of the Transportation Authority of Marin. Right now, we are in the process of identifying a 25-year improvement plan for our county. If everybody who's in this room were to identify improvements at TM Junction as a high priority, we could actually get into that regional transportation plan and get at least in the queue for funding for a major change there that would improve the situation.
I also wanted to add that because the Highway Patrol plays an important role in enforcement at the junction, and so that's something that you should always let my office know about if you think there's a need, because we can make that request, and they're very responsive to us for amped up enforcement. They have been out, they may not be there at times when you've seen them, but so just let us know about that concern, would be helpful.
Oh, hi, my name is Gerald Gribler. I live off Panoramic, and it's another public safety concern that I'll follow my wife. And that's the incidence of accidents that we've noticed with cyclists. And maybe it's part of this bigger issue also, because you know there's a lot of traffic coming along Panoramic Highway that's going to Stinson Beach, not just to MuirWoods. But it is becoming increasingly dangerous for cyclists and for motorists, and I'm just wondering what kind of ideas you might have to reduce the incidence of these accidents, which, as I say, seem to be increasing progressively. Thank you.
Any response?
So this doesn't necessarily address the cyclist accident per se, but you know, one of the reasons that the county passed an ordinance, approved an ordinance limiting the length of buses was to try to address the safety problem of the buses that are too long crossing the center lane. That may be more of a car, vehicular traffic problem, but I think the size of the bus, it is an important issue for all users of the road. But it is scary given the amount of car traffic and the amount of bicyclists. And I guess taking a note from our Share the Path campaign on the multi-use pathway, there's a lot of awareness and patience and politeness and sharing that is inevitably is an important piece of it. But thank you for flagging it. It is something that concerns all of us.
Thank you for the feedback. This probably is one of, like several other concerns we're going to hear. The agreement we're talking about tonight should help, but it is not going to completely eliminate the problem. And there's no question that it will help to not have hundreds and hundreds of cars constantly circling around MuirWoods looking for parking places and pulling out and arriving in a chaotic way that's not managed according to a schedule and reservation system. So I have no doubt that we're going to see improvement to the bicycle safety problem in front of MuirWoods at least. But we've got a broader problem to address. While Laura is speaking, I've got several cards that were filled out by people without names. So I have one from the Great Rancheria, I have one from Coho Friend, I have one from several other Indian tribes. I'm happy to hand you the microphone, but I need you to come on up here if you want to do it. Otherwise, we'll just take those cards as feedback and we'll make sure the Park Service and the county get them. Yeah.
I confess I wrote all of those.
Well, in that case, while you're asking your question, Laura, I'd like Judy Friedman and Michelle McCabe and Joyce Britt to come on up and get ready. But go right ahead.
Thank you. I honor all of you for being here and for participating in this monumental task, as well as really important work for future generations. We are honoring the cycles of salmon in our lives, and we're all part of the cycles. So one of the issues that comes up to me with the reservation system is that it isn't completely honoring of the cycle. The increase that's allowed during the reservation system is actually during the peak spawning season, as well as when the eggs are hatching and the fry are growing. So I think that there needs to be deeper consideration of those cycles if we're going to be considering a reservation system. I also think that we're going through extraordinary circumstances right now with regard to the salmon. And this is being addressed throughout large programs, $1 billion program to recover coho salmon in California and beyond. And I passed out some literature regarding that. There are several pages of it in the Central California Coast Coho Recovery Plan by our tax-paying dollars of the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. And
Or you want to ask a question?
yeah, and so the question is, what can we do in the short term to fix this? Because we've already lost, we think, one class of coho salmon, and the numbers are so dire on the other ones that it won't take much. And so I would like to see this whole process expedited. We went to war, we tooled up for World War II within months, and I don't see why we can't do better on this score. So please, if someone can answer that, thank you.
Anyone want to speak to the schedule and the pace? Certainly, a sense of urgency is definitely there.
Well, to start, I think we agree that it's an urgent situation for the coho population in Redwood Creek. And that's part of why the National Park Service and some of our partners on this issue National Marine Fisheries and Fish and Wildlife, we have teamed up on the Coho Jumpstart project, so I would encourage you to check that out, where we are doing our best to intervene in what is very challenging conditions for coho, which includes unusually warm ocean conditions for coho, a drought in California that has affected in-stream flows in a serious way, and a variety of other factors. We at the National Park Service, we believe strongly that good habitat for coho will help them be resilient within the Redwood Creek watershed, and that's why we have pursued it vigorously and at every opportunity at properties such as Banducci, Muir Beach, that we can mix science with stewardship, community engagement, and funding. And we have more ideas to come about enhancing the Redwood Creek watershed, including inside and outside the monument. In terms of the time frame and specific of this particular agreement, it's come up a couple of different ways. Part of why it takes some time to do things right in the Redwood Creek watershed is the complexity of the area and how precious every single foot or acre in that area is. You have a very narrow canyon that is basically the reason that the redwoods were saved in that area, is it was so difficult to access. And because of this very narrow canyon with this ideally meandering stream and this overlaid historic infrastructure and trails, etc., it takes careful study and thought when you start talking about how you are going to upgrade and rebuild this infrastructure, which is the conversation we're just getting started now. These cars that come off the road, they either need to get onto transit, they need to possibly move into reconfigured or enhanced National Park Service parking lots that are upgraded to be more efficient, or come at different times, or not at all. But all those are very weighty considerations. We need time to think that through, and importantly, if we are to reconstruct our parking lots, which is an objective that we want to do, to upgrade our 1950s infrastructure to better manage stormwater, we'll have to have those parking lots closed for certain periods. and rely on some of the other parking in the area as a temporary basis. So that is part of why you're seeing that 7-year window. We need to implement the reservation system first and not try to immediately build our way out of the problem. We need to see how it performs, and then we'll better understand exactly how much parking we need for the long term, where it should go to be respectful of the watershed. And that's kind of the 1-2 phasing that we're talking about here today.
I'm just going to add 2 things here and keep us moving. A lot of people in this room care about salmon and fish. Obviously, I'm one of them. This is not the only thing out there on the Redwood Creek salmon fish and steelhead fishery. There's all sorts of other work that needs to happen outside of the scope of this agreement. I think this agreement will be good for the fishery, will be a net improvement, but no one should wait for this agreement or assume that this is the only forum where we can engage and do good work on Redwood Creek. Green Gulch isn't waiting. They went and did a wonderful restoration project. There's other really important watershed restoration going throughout the system all the way down to the estuary. So I want to make that point. I also want to say that if you are focused on the road and the traffic and the woods being part of that problem, the best thing we can do is get something done and get it moving. And in my estimation and the estimation of the ad hoc group, getting started with this process may feel like a longer period than many of us want, but it could be a lot worse if this comes off the rails in the agreement. So hang in there. All right, could I ask Joyce Britt? Oh, Joyce, right here. Judy's here. Joyce and Michelle McCabe and Michelle McCabe. Come on up.
So I also want to thank the members of the committee and Jerry Huffman for organizing this process and for all the work that you all did. I think it's very important that we have these kinds of multi-stakeholder meetings to come to really good agreements that are based on multiple points of view and multiple issues on these complex issues that are facing us in the county. I have 4 very short, specific questions having to do with the MOU. It was just distributed right before this meeting. There wasn't a whole lot of time for me, though I like to read them and think about them. So I am wondering, first of all, 1, where do I direct my comments from now on? If I think of something I want to write down, who do I direct that to, or where do I direct those comments? The other question is, who decides what comments are going to be incorporated, or if they're all incorporated, or how they're going to be answered, since this is the last stakeholder meeting? The other question is, how will they be incorporated in the final document so that there is transparency in the process, that all the questions that the general public is bringing to this committee will be seriously considered and answered. So, so where, who, what, maybe not why, but that's about it.
And Judy, I'm going to take an initial stab at this. There may be others that want to weigh in, but I don't want anyone to think that as we go forward with this MOU and some early actions under it, that this is like a full-blown EIS or EIR, where every single public comment is going to get a written response, there'll be a record, there'll be 90 days, 120, et cetera, of hearings. This is, I don't believe, is going to be subject to that kind of exhaustive process. If it is, I promise you, we're going to be years before anything on the ground actually happens. So we want to receive public input. I'm going to make sure the Park Service and the supervisors have it. They can decide how best to respond to it in the days leading up to their hearing and at their hearing. But if there's an expectation that there's some massive EIS, CIR study underway, that is not the path forward that I contemplate.
But I still need to know where I send comments to. Do I send them to your office, or do I send them to...
I'm going to take your comments tonight and give them to these folks. How would this Board of Supervisors like this?
You can certainly send comments to my office and to Supervisor Kinsey's office. And just to be clear, everything that's in this MOU has been the result of a negotiation. And so we want everyone's comments. To move forward with the document is a negotiated process. So it's kind of an art form going forward. But as we said earlier, this Supervisor Kinsey indicated this MOU needs to come before the Board of Supervisors. It will be on our June 16th calendar. That's another opportunity for public input. But again, it's a negotiation. It's a conversation between the county and the Park Service. So we need to feel our way forward as well. Certainly, I could say, I think that comment, and I've done this, believe me, people can tell you, I thought, this comment is fantastic, I want that to go in the document. And then we had a conversation, and it might not have come into the document in exactly that way. And so we are going forward on that same principle. We will certainly try to get in as much as we can, but it's a conversation. So keep the comments coming. Both to our emails and to the board hearing.
All right, thanks. And could I ask, while our next speakers are coming up, could I ask Deborah Green and Chris Lovett to come forward? And Nina Vincent as well. Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle McCabe, and I live up off of Panoramic Highway, so my question is kind of related to that. I understand that with the new reservation system, there's a valet parking component, and you're going to be trying to control the arrival of the buses. So my question is, and maybe it's to the county supervisors here, I can envision buses having a reservation at, say, 10:30 in the morning, but they arrive, along Panoramic Highway, maybe around 10 o'clock. So are we going to see buses loitering along that strip of Panoramic Highway, perhaps parking on the shoulder of the road, waiting to get down to MuirWoods, creating another kind of traffic impact up there along Diaz Ridge that has some other environmental impacts? And where are you going to put all those valet cars? And is the shoulder of the road on Panoramic going to become attractive, because I know you guys want to put parking lots up there?
Thank you. So Aaron and Eric, if you want to.
And the supervisors.
And the supes, if they want to chime in. Is this going to be valet parking or self-parking? This is a common thing that people want to know. And what is the staging going to look like for both the parking and the buses?
So before, I'd like the stakeholders, I'd like an assurance from the stakeholders that the shoulder of Panoramic Highway, a county-controlled road, is not going to be used as a staging area for MuirWoods.
Thank you.
I can speak to the first part. The valet parking is a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, from one of our last meetings. We don't intend to have valet parking the way, at least I think about it, when you give your keys to somebody and they park your car. That's not what we have planned with the reservation system. It is 100% self-parked. What you have is you have as a visitor, you've been given, I'm parking in this lot or this area, and I need to arrive around this time, within plus or minus, and they self-park in that area. What we have said in the past, we will have parking attendants that assist in people finding their way and dealing with issues that might come up, like I arrived too early, arrived too late. So it's going to be staff, but it's not valet parking. From a National Park Service standpoint, we don't plan to use the shoulder of Panoramic Highway in any way for that parking. The reservation system will offer parking at our lots and the roadside parking in the amounts that Eric described that the county has permitted us to park.
Great. And the buses, any shoulder use of the buses?
No. I certainly do not think that buses queuing on the shoulder of a county roadway is an important use of that roadway. And I see our director, our public works director, Raul Rojas, shaking, agreeing affirmatively. Could I say energetically, Raul, with that? None of us think that's a good idea.
Great. Chris?
I'm Joyce Britt. I live in Mill Valley. I'm on the board of a couple of watershed groups. I have two questions. The first, and they both dealing with the emergency circumstances which we have. I looked at the district plan for the Muir Beach community back in 1978. There may be more of them more recently, but this is what caught my eye in the 1978 plan. This was, they were commenting on the drought years, 3 drought years in the 1970s. The water level of the Muir Beach Community Services District well was dropping at the rate of 1 foot per week for 1 month before the rains ended the drought. This demonstrates that there is no assurance of an unlimited supply of water from Redwood Creek. So I was hiking in the Muir Beach area last week, and I see these houses being built with 3- and 4-car garages and swimming pools. And so I have to wonder about where is the logic in all this protection, the $1 billion salmon plan, $15 million spent at Muir Beach, and the little community of what were formerly cabins now are putting in swimming pools.
All right, so if one of you wants to speak to the development question, that's fine. But the transportation and MuirWoods related question was about, it was about the moratorium on parking. Could we have an immediate moratorium on parking on the road?
Yes, and we tried that during Valentine's Day and found that we were terribly unprepared for it. We posted no parking along the entire stretch. People moved the barriers, they parked there anyway. We had people moving up the hill towards Four Corners. It took about 4 days before all of us realized it was completely unworkable. What it's going to take to have an effective elimination of parking is to install barriers, bollards, if you will, posts that will impede physically the ability of people to park in locations where we don't want them parking. We need to install no parking signs. We're strongly considering whether we can actually also include towing provisions in that area to further discourage people from even thinking about it. And then we have an enforcement issue where Supervisor Sears and I are asking our board in this year's budget to provide for some additional capacity for our sheriff to be present, and then in future years, those responsibilities will be primarily undertaken by the Park Service. But you need all those things in place. You need physical barriers, you need signs, and you need meaningful enforcement. If we just put up the signs today, we just have chaos.
And if you just ban parking on the road with no other action, you're still going to have people showing up in their cars competing for a diminished number of spots within the MuirWoods parking lot, and you could have an even more chaotic situation without these other solutions.
And that traffic would queue up from our lots, waiting for spaces in our lots onto the road, and basically jam up the road at that point. So until we have a conversation with each and every visitor about when they're coming and our ability to serve them at that point, then we're not going to be able to handle it via enforcement or banning alone once somebody has traveled a very long distance to get to that spot. We're not enabling success on both sides. So that's why the pieces really have to work together.
All right, Deborah's going to ask the next question. In the meantime, could I ask Chris Lovett, Nina Vincent, and Susan Kirsch to come on up and be ready?
My name is Deborah Green. I'm actually a resident of Sausalito, so I know how to hate tourists and tour buses and traffic on the Ridgeway, so I feel your pain. But I'm standing here, I think, to represent the visitors to Muir. And the caps and management is a way to keep people from having easy access to the woods, and that's something I love. So, how are you going to enforce the management or the traffic control or the parking control when we get a reserved pass? Are you going to tell us you come at 10, but you're gone by 11:45, so contemplate quickly? Or how do we not just have unrestricted access, which is what we've had up until now?
Yeah, I think first off, it's been a very careful balance providing access to this national treasure while helping to provide that quality experience and manage some of these issues. So we acknowledge that is a major balancing act or conundrum part of this issue.
Aaron, how long are the visits going to be, though? I think that's a key piece. I mean, how are we going to keep this from being speed dating?
Specifically, there is we don't have a plan for an end time for your visit.
I love it.
What we will, perfect. And then, so what we'll do is we'll ask for you to arrive at a certain point, and the good news is some people will stay long, but some people will stay short, and on average, it will all work out. But we're not requiring you to leave at a certain point. And we do believe you will be able to come, just maybe not at the same time you're used to.
I'm there when you open. During the week, I will tell retired lawyer.
It's the best time to come anyway. All right, so Susan's next, and Chris Lovett. Go right ahead, Susan. The microphone's yours right there. Oh, yeah, you want it back. Okay. Sure.
Good question.
I got it. I think those other names I called, Chris Lovett. Okay, how about Paul Jeschke? And Terry Seligman? And Joan Simmons. Come on up. Go right ahead, Susan.
So, good evening, and thanks to everybody for all the work that's gone into this. Some of you, when you were making your earlier introductions, talked about the devil in the details, so this might be one of those questions. It's kind of the devil in the details. My question is about how you're measuring the cost benefit to Marin County or back to the National Park Service. And specifically, you've talked about some revenue sources like, there's still the ticket fee to get in, and the parking fee, and the bus fees, I guess, and then also knowing we're going to have road maintenance fees and emergency vehicle fees and some things like that. So I'm curious to hear both from National Park Service and the county how you're looking at cost-benefit analysis for both Marin and the National Park Service.
What we do know is that as part of the reservation system, we will have a fee for parking. And the proceeds of that fee, we want to make basically 3 to 4 strategic investments with those proceeds. One is we need to have enforcement. It's been talked about, so we'll be investing some of the proceeds in dedicated enforcement. The other investment we'll be making is in a better level of maintenance and best management practices for the parking that exists. It includes things in the interim, wattles and other stormwater measures, and the cost of implementing these bollards and blocking things off. That will also be funded from this fee. And also we want to make investments in transit. We talked about, we want to make sure we keep the transit fare low. It's currently $5 to ride the shuttle. We'd like to see that continue. And we'd like to have the price of driving to MuirWoods be slightly higher than taking the shuttle to provide the right incentives. But then we can take those parking fees and invest in sustainable transit to this location. And then lastly, along with our entrance fee, we're talking about upgrading our entire infrastructure for the health of the watershed inside and outside the monument. So habitat and watershed restoration, along with our partners in the Tamalpais Lands Collaborative, as well as I want to acknowledge and recognize our state partners that are key to this, and Bill Lutton, the superintendent of the Marin District, is in the front row here. I'd like to hear him speak at some point. But with our state parks, we would like to continue to invest in our state parks from our MuirWoods entrance fee, in addition to all of those other investments.
So that's all happening within the National Park Service, what you just described?
What will be, it's not all happening within the National Park Service. We will be doing the collection. And then what we'll be doing is working with Marin Transit to establish the transit. We'll be working with the county and state parks to implement bollards. We'll be working with state parks to conserve trails used by MuirWoods visitors, and so on and so forth. So we'll be having many partners in execution, but we are serving as the collection agent.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, Susan, I think to me the cost-benefit ratio really kicks in on the enhanced safety of dramatic reduction in the parking along Redwood Creek, the enhanced safety of pedestrians as well as drivers, the enhanced benefit to the environment of not having that plus 400 cars trying to squeeze themselves in places where they shouldn't be. The reduction in the number of cars, it may not seem like a large percentage coming through Tam Valley, but it still is a reduction. Every step we take is important. The more efficient management of our commercial buses, this was something that was very important to me throughout these conversations, was making sure that there were enhanced restrictions on the commercial buses and that there was a more efficient use of the commercial buses. So we didn't have that situation that I think we all see at the commercial bus that appears to only be half full. None of us want to see that. We want to have efficient use of our public transit. We want to drive people onto the public transit. So those, I think, are tremendous benefits. and the fact that the Park Service will have a revenue stream that will then go to enhancing the maintenance along Redwood Creek, will go to enhancing our collaboration with our MuirWoods shuttle. Those are all significant benefits for the county, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question, and I just want to say, I think I'd like to take us just a little past 9 o'clock. I promise not much, but we'll take these next 2 questions, and I'll ask Linda Casper to come forward if she's here to be our last question, and then we'll get you folks out of here a few minutes after 9.
I'm Paul Jeske from Muir Beach. I'd like to thank the Congressman and the members of this group for the progress that you've made. I think there's one area, however, where you've made no progress whatsoever, no improvement whatsoever, and you have more work to do. That is the size of the buses that are currently coming to MuirWoods. Your proposal says that you want to limit them to 35 feet. That's no improvement whatsoever. They currently are, the Park Service currently limits them to 35 feet. So you haven't improved things there. And as anyone, or most of the people in this room can tell you, these oversized buses, these 35-foot buses, are a menace to bicyclists, to hikers, to joggers, to motorists. We've all almost been left off the road. I know you want people to use buses, but you must, I ask you, use smaller buses so that the lives of all of us are not threatened by these behemoths.
And while we're doing, is Peter Anderson here? Because I did not have, yeah, come on, Peter, you'll be our last question.
Yeah, on the size of the buses, Muir Transit does operate 35-foot buses that are a little less than 35 feet. The important thing on those buses is that they're actually narrower than some of the shorter vehicles. So when you look at the shorter vans, they actually are wider very often. So one of the reasons we have the vehicle that we do for the MuirWoods shuttle is that it's actually 96 inches wide, and the standard bus is 103, and some of the small, short buses are over 96 as well. So that's one of the reasons we operate those. We feel that those can be operated most safely with the number of passengers that we have as well. Obviously, if we have smaller buses that can't carry as many people, we have a lot more of them. So we think that this will be kind of optimized at our 35-foot bus.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but I believe that several of us can testify that many of your 35-foot buses do not stay within their lanes on those narrow routes.
All right, well, thank you. Our penultimate question here, and then we'll go back into
I'm Joe Simmons. I do live off Shoreline, but I've also been a volunteer over MuirWoods. Yeah, as a volunteer in the woods, I've been focused on the visitor experience. And so this is part of the details will be how do you really deter drop-ins for non-reservation holders. If they do drive to the woods, you'll still have the same problem with the number of cars driving up and down the road. Even though they can't park, they will still sort of trying to get their place at your woods.
There will be an adjustment period to change the behavior of every visitor from MuirWoods in this way. However, we're confident, and we've been in touch with other national parks and other park experiences that have had to make similar changes about getting people out of their cars and changing their behavior. And we believe through a coordinated, multi-year outreach campaign that involves a lot of the destinations of where folks are coming from, that combined with on-the-ground signage and messaging and several different points, not unlike what you see on Highway 101, that is repetitive and discouraging at certain times when a reservation is really required. There's a bit of an art to managing some of these systems, and it will take a little bit time for us to optimize it. We will have a way, we're not looking to advertise it, so that goes for everyone here. We will have a way to deal with people that initially don't get the message, but over time, once the message is out there, we will have a very high expectation that people have that message, and if they pass 3 or 4 signs coming through, we'll need to make a recommendation for them to go to Samuelton Taylor State Park.
let me also
Also a wonderful visitor experience.
And let me add to that, because this was a topic of conversation in the stakeholders group, and you will notice when you get a chance to read the MOU more fully that there is a particular item in there that addresses what the Park Service will have on its website. And also, it was very important to us that there really was a marketing outreach, and so that there would be outreach to concierges in San Francisco. Really everything that can be done to spread the word on the website, in signs, on roadside signs, reaching out to concierges, everything to try to get the word out.
I'm going to add one other thing, which I think is important for folks who live in this area, which is we will continue to be able to have the opportunity to hike into the woods at no charge and no restrictions, no reservations. That's an important thing that I think the Park Service has agreed to. Bicyclists will still be able to arrive at the park. They'll need to pay their entrance fee. But this is a car and bus reservation program.
All right, last question.
Congressman Huffman, if I may.
Well,
you have many speakers here. Everybody's very busy.
I'll speak to that. I really want to keep some order and respect, folks.
And the release of the MOU just...
All right. Out of respect for those that filled out their cards and waited patiently, I'm going to let them have the microphone. I do want to say, though, I promise you folks, I haven't sorted the cards or iced anybody out here. We've just got a lot more cards than we have time. And so what I said a little while back, for those that we didn't get to tonight, this is not a conspiracy. We're going to take your feedback. I'm going to give it to the Park Service and the county. And this is not the last chance that you're going to have for public input and questions. In fact, you're going to have a few weeks at a minimum. And you're going to have another public hearing at the Board of Supervisors where all of the public comment rules are going to apply. So I apologize that we didn't have even more time. We've done our best, but I have to respect those who've been patient and filled out their cards. So go right ahead. I'm going to ask you, ma'am, to please respect the forum tonight.
And I would ask you to respect transparency.
Go right ahead.
I'm a third generation Mill Valleyite, and I live in Fairfax now. My grandfather graded the side of Old Mill School with a team of horses. Things have changed a bit. I wanted to share this with you. Switzerland is building a separate bicycle path all the way across Switzerland that will accommodate regular bicycles and electric bicycles. Switzerland, that's a country with a lot of big mountains. I wonder if a separate bicycle path is one of your considerations for moving transport people out to the parks.
Anyone?
Just the opposite.
The short answer is no. The longer answer would involve the planning, the costs of installation, the sources of funding to do that. We have made significant progress, but if you're asking, do we have any ideas of developing a Class 1 or an independent pathway out to MuirWoods, we haven't done it this time. I did mention the regional transportation plan process, which does provide folks an opportunity to express their interest in any kinds of mobility improvements. And although that would be a very ambitious undertaking, I think if it's really sincere, that people think that's an important next step in improving safety and access, that you ought to take advantage of the process that we have and put your suggestions into play with the Transportation Authority we're in.
Anyone from the Park Service want to speak to that?
I just want to add, I agree, we haven't discussed this in a near-term plan, but I do want to mention that what really is on the table here, it's a 7-year agreement, and we're really talking about a next, what is MuirWoods going to be the next 10 years for its arrival, and what progress are we going to make during that period. But it doesn't preclude future visioning and future ideas that could be bolder and more meaningful along all the goals we discussed today. It's a step forward, but as many have said, ideas like this one and others are fair game when we're talking about beyond. We're just trying to make this first step, start to manage the way people arrive, and then once you get there, we can start having bigger conversations about how the future can unfold. And so, it's not like these other ideas aren't out there or haven't been considered. This is a building block step to those.
All right, folks, I really want to thank the folks that were with us on the dais, especially the Park Service and the county and our county supervisors, and a huge thanks to the members of my ad hoc group. Our ad hoc group is now finished. So your work has gotten us started. We brought you, as soon as we had something for you to consider, we brought you our recommendation in the form of this draft MOU. After tonight, this is now in the hands of the Board of Supervisors of the National Park Service to take the initial input we've received tonight, but then to take all the additional input that I know is going to come to them over the next few weeks and make a tough decision about whether to move forward. I hope that everyone here tonight agrees with me that this is a heck of a lot better than the status quo and that it deserves your support, that we ought to give this a try. But I respect that there's probably a diversity of views on this, and at this point, my work is done. I'll stay engaged, my staff will stay engaged. If we can be helpful, we will. But the next leg of this journey is in the hands of these two government agencies, and I wish them the best, and thank all of you for joining us tonight.